Hi, seventh graders. Today we're going to look at what exactly will be on your test that's coming up. Chapter 3 test will be either on January 22nd or 26th. If you were in the B cohort, you will be taking your test on January 22nd. If you're in the A cohort, you'll be taking it the 26th. So this is exactly what's going to be on the test. 4 pages, 4 objectives. Integer operations, so you will have to add, subtract, multiply, or divide positive and negative whole numbers. Decimal and fraction operations, adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing decimals and fractions. Order of operations, simplifying expressions using the correct mathematical order. Now remember, we use the circling term strategy to help us with order of operation problems. And then the properties that we looked at, the commutative and the associative properties. So the first objective, integer operations. Here's 3 examples that you could see. So looking at the first one, -2 times -9. What do you get? You get a positive 18. Remember the smiley faces. The eyes are both negative, which means it's a happy face, which means it's going to be a positive number. Negative times a negative is a positive number. So we get positive 18. Second question, -4 plus 12. This is a positive 8. When you're adding 2 numbers and they have different signs, you find the difference between the two. So the difference between 12 and 4 is 8, and the bigger one keeps its sign. So 12 is bigger than 4, so this is going to be a positive 8. You can also think about using integer tiles. So if you lay out 12 positive tiles and then you lay out 4 negative tiles, those 4 negative tiles are going to cancel out 4 of the positive tiles for 4 0 pairs, leaving you with a positive 8. Last question, 5 minus -11. This is 16. Use the keep, change rule here. So 5 minus -11 is the same as 5 plus a positive 11, or 5 plus 11, which is 16. Decimal and fraction operations. First question, 5.2 times 2.6. I don't want you to use a calculator here. Okay, so what do you get? You will get 13.52. Now, what you do when you multiply decimals, you take them out and you multiply the whole number. So 52 times 26, when you do that, you get 1,352. Then you need to figure out where the decimal place goes. You count up how many decimal places were in the expression. So 5.2 has 1 decimal and 2.6 has another decimal. So our answer needs to have 2 decimal places. You can also look at your answer and ask, does it make sense? If you would put the decimal place in the wrong spot and looked at this as like 5 times a little more than 2, if you said 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15, your answer needs to be between 10 and 15, which ours is. So we know that we did it correctly. Second question, 2 2/3 divided by 2. Here you get 1 1/3. The way you need to do this is the flip the second guy and multiply strategy. But first, you have to turn 2 2/3 into an improper fraction. You do that by multiplying 2 times 3 to get 6, and then adding 2 to get 8. So 8/3 divided by 2. We have to flip the second guy and multiply. Now, I did this on purpose. Remember, dividing by 2. 2 as a fraction is 2 over 1. That doesn't mean that you flipped it. It's 2 over 1 before you flip it. So this question turns into 8/3 times 1/2. When you multiply those 2 fractions, you get 8/6, which is equivalent to 1 1/3. Order of operations. Looking at that first question there, how many terms does it have? It has 4 terms. Terms are separated by pluses and minuses that are not in parentheses. So the 3 is a term, the 4 groups of 4 is a term, the 5 groups of 3 plus 4 is a term, and then 2 groups of 6 is a term. So what do you get? You get 66. You add 3 plus 16 plus 35 plus 12 to get 66. Second question, how many terms does this one have? This one has 3. The 5, and then the 3 times 5 divided by 5, that's its own term, and then the 3 groups of 2. So what do you get? 2. 5 plus, now the 3 times 5 divided by 5 is it's all one term, so you have to take 15 divided by 5, which is 3. 5 plus 3 is 8. And then you have to subtract 3 groups of 2, which is 6. So 8 minus 6 is 2. Final objective, the associative and the commutative properties. So which property does that first example represent? They use the commutative property. Remember, the C and the O in commutative property, think about that as changing the order. So we can change the order of multiplication and addition problems without changing the answer. So the reason we did this is because 20 times 18, you could do that, but then taking that times 5 becomes more difficult. But if you switch it around to take 20 times 5 first, 20 times 5 is 100. And then 100 times 18 is 1800. So by flipping them around, by changing the order, it makes our problem become mental math. Second question, which property was used there? That was the associative property. Notice how we added parentheses, okay? We grouped those together. We grouped the 44 and the 6 together because that's a nice number at 50. Okay? 7 plus 50 plus 11 becomes easier. Okay, so 7 plus 50 is 57. 57 plus 11, 68. Okay, so that's what we got. That's what's going to be on the test. We are going to review a couple days in class before you take the test to make sure that you guys are all prepared and ready to go.